Hey guys, my name is Cicabeot1, and it's finally time to bridge the gap for good. For a while I was actually considering saving this one for later since Finn from the Social Tune just did a Best of 2008 video not too long ago, but I knew that if I just sat on this it would keep bugging me. So might as well get it out now. And what did I think about this year? I don't know. 2008 is one of the most transitional years I've looked back at in retrospect. It doesn't especially stand out to me one way or the other, I guess, so my feelings towards this year are similar to that of 2006 or 2011. At least that's what it felt like the first time around. The second time I listened to the year-end, I grew to appreciate this year a bit more for one reason. It made me feel like a teenage girl. Seriously, take a look at some of these big and even small hits from the year-end. The Jonas Brothers, Disney-era Miley Cyrus, Teenage Taylor Swift, Metro Station, early Chris Brown, Pop T.I., Katy Perry, Jordan Sparks, Leona Lewis. This was the year of the teenage girl, and as a transgender girl who didn't really get to grow up as a teenage girl, it kind of felt exciting to me, and I liked way more of that side of the charts than I thought I would, which in a way means that I had somewhat slim pickings for putting together a worst list for this year. That's a good sign at least. It means it'll be easier to not make this video too angry, because angry videos are no fun, right? These are...
You look so dumb right now.
The top 10 worst hit songs of 2008. Number 10. Every music critic, or music hobbyist as I like to call them, I know has a few punching bags they rag on from time to time, and I am no exception. And I guess Mariah Carey's kinda like that for me, somehow. I'll admit I overreacted when I said I hate Mariah Carey in my 2005 video. That was an unfair judgment on my part and I'm sorry. I know she's a talented singer and has made some great music before, but keep in mind that I'm mostly familiar with her music from the mid-2000s on, and in the late 2000s, Mariah Carey definitely fell from grace. She had the biggest hit of 2005, which was in turn the biggest hit of the decade, yeah, but after that? A song in 2006 I can't even remember the title of, this song here, and Obsessed in 2009. Yeah, the years I've touched are the beginning of the Dark Ages as far as I can tell, and she wasn't free of blemish in 2005 either, so yeah. And this song here, this is kind of a bore. At least Mariah's other bad songs were interesting to talk about. This is kind of a flat roller coaster, and I shouldn't be feeling that, you know? After all, it's a song that you're supposed to listen to and imagine that you're about to have sex with Mariah Carey. Sweet, right? But I'm sorry, no level of cooing can make wavering between A and F sharp on the first verse sexy.
I know that you've been waiting for it, I'm waiting too.
In fact, I'm not sure who could find this sexy. Maybe aliens? Other than that, the production is a lifeless mush of cheap-sounding pianos and snaps, so you're already failing to seduce me. And the things you say to me do not help you.
If it's a camera up and hidden, it's only you put it.
Like I said, the premise of this song is simple, at least on the surface. You are having sex with Mariah Carey. But this weird pre-chorus kinda throws everything out of whack because it's all about the rules of the encounter, so to speak. And fine, I'm not gonna act like it's unreasonable to not want footage of this on the internet, or to not go blabbing about this to other people, unless you're cheating on someone with me, that is. Where I do start having problems is where you say you'll hunt me down.
I will hunt you down.
That's kind of a turnoff, not gonna lie. I'm not into
Touch my body, put me on the floor.
And then in the chorus, she's... Wait. Why is a cast member of 30 Rock freaking out with a Guitar Hero controller? Is this some weird sex position that came out in 2008? Also, the last review I did was tangentially about Guitar Hero, so that's a weird coincidence. Okay, this is starting to make me feel uncomfortable. Mariah, I thought you said you didn't want this on YouTube. At least she mixed things up a little for the second verse, even though with more of a melody, she still sounds like a robot. In fact, I guess that's my main issue with this song. It doesn't sound like a human made it. It sounds like a computer auto-generating a Mariah Carey song. The vocals are technically fine, but they lack real passion or understanding of human emotions. So it's basically a David Cage video game in song form. But pair that with a video that very much feels like it comes from the weird part of YouTube, and you have what I consider a textbook example of encapsulated madness. Like, the song is already teetering on encapsulated madness by itself, but this weird fantasy scene tips it over the edge without a doubt. Never has a song about fulfilling male fantasy felt so dull and yet so crazy.
Trying to apologize.
Number 9.
Please.
So you ever come across a song you think is absolute garbage, but can't help but appreciate for just how comically garbage it is? Like, so bad it's good, except you don't think it's good at all? Well, for me, that's this song.
I'm the biggest boss that you've seen thus far. I'm the biggest boss that you've seen thus far.
Behold, the only year-end hit Rick Ross has had as a lead artist. Isn't that kinda sad?
I don't make love, baby, we make magic.
Absolutely nothing about this song functions like it should, and that is just hilarious to me. Like, nearly every decision in the production confuses me because this is supposed to be a hardcore thug song, right? You got the main beat that's comprised of what sounds like chipmunk voices, with drum machines ripped from a Beastie Boys song that sound like they're being played backwards. It's overall surreal to me to the point where I'm not sure I can really get mad at this. It's an absolute musical failure for sure, but at least I can laugh at it.
I'ma make it rain, then I'ma make it back. You are just a lame little homie, that's a fact.
And wow, Rick Ross sounds absolutely ridiculous rapping against this, because he's presenting himself as a gangster, his usual MO, and has so little self-awareness that what he's rapping against belongs more in a crappy live-action CG hybrid adaptation of an old cartoon than it does a gangster song. But you know what? I don't think this is quite ridiculous enough. We need a little more to make this an absolute joke. But where to start? T-Pain on the hook. That's a good start. Plus he's got the added bonus of sounding just slightly offbeat. Oh, and repeating the word boss over and over again, as if that's really gonna build any sort of credibility with you. Not even the Lonely Island's Like a Boss used this word so many times, and that was trying to be funny. Also, just... why get T-Pain to do the hook of a hardcore thug anthem? He's a teddy bear, someone with a goofy personality who's in his comfort zone when he's making sleazy songs or just ones with kind of ridiculous premises. You know who the game recruited to do the hook for his hardcore thug anthem this year? Lil Wayne. I mean, the chorus to that song was garbage, but it made sense and the rest of the song was actually still intense. Meanwhile, the boss feels like a parody of a hardcore thug song rather than actually being a hardcore thug song. Again, think Lonely Island. I'm on a boat, especially if you want to go the T-Pain route, or We'll Kill You if you want to go the You Will Kill You route. And the cherry on top of this disaster cake is an air horn. Dear God. Admittedly, I wasn't on top of my memes in 08 outside of Akon has Cheeseburger, but I refuse to believe that even at the time, this was taken remotely seriously. Is there anything else you wanted to add to this? Maybe a vuvuzela, random scat bridge, T-Pain reciting the Pledge of Allegiance with autotune? I don't see why not. You can't make this any sillier than it already is. In fact, this may be one of the few times where I'm actually thankful that a song on one of my worst lists exists, if only for how funny it is. And also it is an example of what not to do when trying to build up credibility as a thug. So this is one of the few times where a bad song has actually done more good for the world than it's done bad. Am I being condescending to someone who could probably kill me if he wanted to? Yes. Yes, I am. But it's worth it.
Don't tell me you're sorry 'cause you're not.
Number 8. But now let's switch to something less funny. American Idol runner-up's weight. Part of me feels bad for singling out this song as one of the worst of the year. This came out when David Archuleta was only 17 years old, after all, and I know anything I wrote when I was 17 wasn't exactly golden either. And he was also an American Idol contestant, so it had to have taken a lot of guts to put himself out there, I'll admit. But then I actually listened to this and feel empty. David's just not that distinct of a presence here, and that might have to do with him not even writing this. So that all makes me feel better in thinking that this song is garbage. Let's start with the concept. When you find out about a song with a rock edge called Crush, you would hope that it's heavy and a little violent. You know, like the Megadeth song from that album nobody liked, and never mind. But instead, this is a love song. Sure. And what's more, he uses the word crush to refer to his feelings towards a girl. That's a pretty flimsy sentiment to build a song around. I'm sorry. Even a puppy dog love song needs to have a little more intimate connection between the singer and the person the song is about. Or singy, rather, even though I'm pretty certain that's not a word. Really, just take a step back and think about what a crush is. It's a moment of pure infatuation or lust, prone to going away or just not leading to a fulfilling relationship. So the premise of this song basically boils down to this. David Archuleta doesn't know if he's really in love or if he's just full of lust at that moment. And I wouldn't have a problem with this if A, the word crush didn't sound so stupid coming from his mouth, and B, if the song was made to be self-aware about how David's young and hormonal and potentially wrong about how great he could have it with this girl. It's about as wishy-washy as meant to be in that respect, which is a bad approach when trying to make a sincere love song. Then by definition, it's not a crush. See why it was a bad decision to base your song around such an empty term? And then you have the production, just blandly layered so the electric guitars have almost no punch on the chorus when they really need to pop. Then there's the vocal production that feels entirely too polished and makes David sound like a robot at times. And the instrumental arrangement is so bland that there's nothing that really stands out about it. In fact, the only thing in this entire song that does stand out is David singing the word crush. It's boring, forgettable, passionless, synonyms, yada yada yada. I can see why David Cook won American Idol over this guy, to be honest. Even if his hit The Time of My Life didn't impress me, it had more going on than this does. After all, it's not hard to have more going on than this.
But you put on quite a show. Really had me.
Number 7.
Pull up to the club and it go up. Make your girl fall in love when I show up.
Hip-hop has a long, proud tradition of stealing girls from their men. Why does hip-hop have a long, proud tradition of stealing girls from their men? In all but a very small handful of instances, this makes the singer look like an asshole, even when they're trying to present what they're doing as a good deed. So I guess that explains why, just like Shawn Mendes after him, Trey Songz trying to make his lust for someone who's already taken sound romantic comes off as immature and downright infuriating. Yep, 2 years before he was Mr. Steal Yo Girl, Trey Songz was Mr. Hope Yo Girl Get With Me instead. And this isn't any better of a look than just upright stealing someone's girl. But whatever. For now, let's just give Trey the benefit of the doubt, at least for a little bit. Let's forget that he's only saying what he's saying to this girl because he wants her for himself, as hard as that can be to ignore. Because context is everything in a song about bad relationships. So before we talk about how selfish Trey is on this song, let's go over what this guy is doing to this girl.
You stand by while he lies, then turn right around and forgive.
He lies? Yeah, that's not something you want to do in a relationship, fair enough, but what was he lying about? Cheating, drinking, anything else like that?
I can't take to see your face with those tears run down your cheeks.
Okay, she's unhappy. Yeah, you keep telling yourself that. I didn't buy it when Shawn Mendes said it either, so that really doesn't help your case.
It ain't fresh to just let him call the shots.
Being too controlling? Again, kind of vague, but understandable. And also he says he should be buying her more things, so he's not buying her love, and that doesn't seem like that big of an issue. But whatever, it's a mainstream R&B song, so it's gotta throw in some materialism somewhere. And really, that's it. It's just some vague nothings that don't really sound that rough when you take a step back. And as you would expect, Trey spends more time talking about how she should be with him instead of talking about why she shouldn't be with the other guy. And his reasons don't really extend beyond, "I'll treat you better."
Even though I know I treat you better than he can.
Which is an empty promise. If I found out that Shawn Mendes took inspiration from this song, it would not surprise me. So despite his best efforts, Trey Songz still comes off as jealous and greedy. As much as he wants to make you believe otherwise, I don't hear a man who's heartbroken that someone's being treated badly. I hear someone who thinks they could buy the love of someone who passed on him for someone else. And like with Treat You Better, I have to make it clear that the music video does not matter here. In the video, the other guy is abusive both verbally and physically to the woman, yeah, but if you don't at least hint at that in the lyrics, the song is not about that. We didn't fall for that when Mendes did it, we shouldn't fall for it when Trey Songz does it, 8 years earlier. Doesn't matter. I mean, I can't imagine that anyone actually remembers this. It also doesn't help that this sounds so juvenile. It's another case where the singer has a high voice but is using a beat that has little to no bass to balance it out. Instead you get these warpy synths and twinkly pianos. It's like a music box, and not in a good way. And it serves to highlight just how insufferable Trey Songz is here. He's not the worst R&B singer I've heard by any means, but he's nothing special either, and he does not have the charisma to make a song like this work. I honestly don't know who could. I understand it can be tough to see someone you love or lust for with someone else, but you can't say you'd be better for them and not explain why without coming off as an asshole. No exceptions. Grin and bear it, it'll get better, you'll find someone else, all that stuff. Moving on. Not even gonna play the end of the song, just play the transition. Number 6. Back when I did my Worst of 2006 video last year, I was told that I might like a certain song from an act that I had blasted in that video. That didn't happen. So, a little history. My first exposure to Danity Kane was from their 2006 hit Showstopper. That song ended up at the top of the worst list I did with Rodrigo because it was breathy, intense, and overall just made us uncomfortable, to oversimplify things. Damaged obviously isn't quite as bad as Showstopper was, but I hate it for similar reasons as Showstopper, mainly that it's uncomfortably tense. Just listen to how nervous these girls sound. Listen to how robotic and stiff everything is, especially with the occasional stuttering and that random spelling on the bridge. This is just depressing. It's so loud and unappealing, overblowing its melodrama and messy harmonies in an overstuffed mix. It's this sort of tension that's an especially big pet peeve of mine, especially when you pair them with ridiculous metaphors. Listen, if you're having problems with your heart, you either need a defibrillator or to go to the hospital, because there's not a lot I could do with some band-aids, a roll of tape, some gauze, and some tweezers. And while I'm on the subject of ridiculous metaphors, they actually lead to one of the worst aspects of this song: the framing. The premise of the song is that these 5 girls, collectively, I assume, got their hearts broken in their last relationship. So these girls bring this information to you, as the next person they are dating, asking you what you are going to do about it. Which ultimately comes off as needy if you ask me, and also incredibly unfair to the person they're singing to. Honestly, if someone came to me saying all this and I wasn't already good friends with them, I wouldn't really want anything to do with them, because that person would come off as high maintenance to me. That might seem a bit rude, I understand, but please hear me out on this. If your last relationship scarred you to the point of damaging your heart, trying to fix it with another relationship doesn't seem like the right approach to me. Take some time, single, to calm down. Talk with some friends about it, or if it was psychologically scarring, consider therapy. I'll admit I'm not an expert in relationships or mental health, but that seems like a way more productive use of your time than burdening a potential love interest with these overdramatic problems when they've just met you. Sadly for Danity Kane, this was their second and last hit. Diddy, the group's manager, fired 2 members in 2008 on reality TV, which would turn into a full breakup in 2009. The 3 remaining members attempted a comeback in 2013 that ultimately went nowhere and fizzled out by the next year. And honestly, with how bad the songs I've heard from them are, I can't say I'm sad that they couldn't get more hits after this. Sorry. Like these girls' past relationships, not everything has a happy ending, and I'm glad the rest of America was done with this group by after 2008.
This too shall pass.
You better hurry up before the sprinklers come on.
Number 5.
Shimmy, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah. Drink.
So, according to Hayden, this guy, I'm afraid of sex. And he's right. To help explain what I mean, I asked Hayden to help educate you about the phenomenon afraid of sex.
Hi, I'm Professor Dr. Hayden, and I'm here to educate you on the medical term afraid of sex. Afraid of sex is a term typically used referring to music critics that exhibit an unnatural aversion to sexual content within music, and will fault an artwork for its inclusion of sexual content where they believe it is needless. The term was coined in 2017 by a very smart man. Symptoms of being afraid of sex include celibacy, impotence, and dehydration. Based on this rough description of being afraid of sex, I believe a prime example of a victim of this disease is none other than your host, Cicabeot1's. Cicabeot1. Watching Cicabe's videos show signs of chronic AOS, such as describing Strip That Down by Liam Payne as sleazy, which is one of the more obvious signs of being afraid of sex, or on a Billboard Top 20 ranking, Cicabeot states that Mine by Bazzi takes an uncomfortable sexual turn, which I didn't like. Some people say that it's just music criticism and Cicabeot's sexual confidence is not at all reflected in the videos. If you say this, I will shimmy into your bedroom like a smooth criminal and promptly yeet you out of the living world. Thank you for attending my lecture.
Thank you, Hayden. That was really entertaining. And also at my expense, so somebody must have gotten a laugh. Now then, this next song on this list is about sex. From having an absolute banger of a hit with Stay Fly in 2006 to this club monstrosity, my main issue with this song is not really that it's about sex, it's more that it sounds awful. Just putting that out there. Not that the sexual content really makes it any better, it's comparing sex to candy. Of course it's gonna be an uphill battle to make this sexy or make sense, and this chorus does neither, because lollipops aren't like vaginas. There's a case to be made that some are like penises, but not like vaginas. I guess they could mean it's sweet like- No, stopping myself there, that's a bad metaphor, just leave it at that. As for the chorus itself, for some reason, some lyric sites think that this is T-Pain on the hook. I don't see how you could think that. I think this is Superpower or one of the other 3 featured artists that I didn't bother to type out, but I'm not really sure. But I am sure that this guy does not emulate T-Pain's personality. He's way more high-pitched and flat, and dare I say, too clean. I'm totally stalling, this chorus is atrocious. It's loud, it's invasive, the synths sound cheap, and the mixing makes it so you can hardly make out what the guy is saying. Especially with this lovely line over here. Ah yes, the most essential food. Pink. Also, a chocolate lollipop sounds like it'd be disgusting. As for the rest of the song, does it even matter? You already know how this is gonna go over. 3-6 are gonna lust over some girls with some bars that aren't as clever as they think they are. Juicy J in particular will say something that embarrasses him. Yada yada yada, we can all go home.
They call me the juice when I'm at the strip club.
That's your rap name, so wouldn't they call you wherever you go? Not just at the strip club?
I put down 100 order.
Also, that stuttering effect he's using is really annoying. I wish he wouldn't have used that.
Like Barack Obama said, yeah, it's time for a change.
Wait, hold up, this is a political song? Okay then, I wasn't expecting a song called Lolly Lolly, parentheses, Pop That Body, to be about politics. So, points there, I guess? Something mildly interesting happened to this song. Not something good, granted, and not enough to keep me from frantically trying to stop the song from playing when I hear it. But you know, something. And hey, Obama actually won the election in 2008, so maybe Juicy J had something to do with that? I don't know, I'm trying, alright? Which is more than I can say for this song. Well, at least it was only one of the few crunk songs that notched a spot on the year-end list for this year, if you can even call it crunk. You probably can't, it's just club music that happens to be performed by a group of meatheads. Nothing more, nothing less.
Baby, when I know you're only sorry you got caught.
Number 4. When going through this year-end, I was surprised at how few new artists there were that could sustain super successful careers over time. Just looking through this list, you've got Flo Rida, I guess, but he's famous for being a non-presence. Plus there's Trey Songz, who we already talked about and I often forget even exists. And that's it, I guess. But still, I feel like I'm forgetting someone. Oh yeah, this was the year Katy Perry broke through. Hooray. Like with Justin Bieber's Baby, I think I can admit that part of my hatred for the song comes down to bias. I remember hearing the song on the radio when it was new and hating it. My brother even came up with this parody that went along the lines of, I kissed a squirrel and I liked it, he did a double backflip. I guess he came up with the double backflip part himself, but I know for a fact he wasn't the first to think of the squirrel joke. And when I came back to this song with 10 years hindsight and having heard many more hits from Katy Perry, I can still say that I hate this. It might even be her worst hit if you don't count Bon Appetit, which I don't. Well, at least she got the worst one out first. Before we get to the elephant in the room, I want to stress that this sounds like garbage. The electric guitars sound cheap, the synths are fuzzy as hell, and Katy Perry herself sounds worse here than I think she ever has on any other song. She strains to hit notes that really aren't that difficult to hit in her mid-range, and pitch correction does a bad job at masking it. She sounds like she's trying to cough up a hairball. I didn't believe Todd when I heard him say that she couldn't hit a note, but this is proof that she can't. And this hit number 1. And she had a dozen hits after this, a lot of which also went to number 1. I'm hearing how bad this sounds, and I'm baffled she was even given more hits, even if some of them weren't actually that bad. But of course, the real reason anyone ever cared about this song is the lesbian experimentation. Even after songs like Little Big Town's Girl Crush from 2015 or that new Rita Ora song that thankfully flopped immediately, I still think this is the worst example of this for a couple reasons. First is that the first verse implies that the only reason she did this was alcohol, and not because of any actual bi-curiosity or desire to be provocative. And yeah, her later hit Last Friday Night was all about a drunken bender, but the reason that worked is because the things she described were actually rebellious and kinda stupid. To put lesbianism on that same level of stupid is just kind of a slap in the face. But the most telling part is this line in the second verse. How stupid are you that you equate being gay to being a bad girl, even in 2008? And yes, I am judging this line in 2018, where LGBTQ discussion is everywhere, but it's not like LGBTQ were invisible in 2008 either. Kissing girls is naughty my ass. Okay, you're gonna have to make up your mind here. Are you being a bad girl or not? Or are you just trying to have it both ways and failing? Or maybe I'm looking too deep into this. Maybe that's not what she was going for. Maybe she didn't think this kind of implication through. I don't know. This just feels like cheap titillation that's supposed to get the attention of guys who thinks lesbians are hot. But it's not a sexy song. It's rough and ugly. Even Rita Ora had the right idea with how a song like this should sound. But this? No. Katy, I reject your titillation. I reject any intentions you had with supporting LGBTQ, and I reject this other girl's cherry chapstick. I'll just end up losing it anyway, like I always do with my chapstick. Number Snow. I am willing to bet that this is the most hated hit from 2008. If there were more worst of 2008 lists out there instead of just Ethan and Mark's and now mine, and Ducky were to make a community video for the year, this would probably be at the top of that community video. And yeah, it deserves it. But it's not my number 1. I have no explanation other than I hated 2 songs even more. First, though, I want to talk about Beep, a song that would have made my worst of 2006 list if I was the only one making it. This was essentially my first exposure to the Pussycat Dolls, and obviously it was not a good first impression. The premise is basically, hey, we're being naughty, but there are these loud, ear-damaging beeping sounds over the naughty words, so we can play this on the radio. And it's not even clever or provocative because it's being produced by will.i.am. I was a little disappointed I didn't get to talk about this song because, god, it's a train wreck. And then, of course, they got even worse a couple years later. Imagine the beeping from Beep, but now it's even louder. Louder to the point where you feel like you're being surrounded by, what you may ask? Pussy. Yeah, this is one of the most annoying songs I've ever heard. Not just because of the descending synth riff or those strange whooping sounds that play in the second chorus, but also in the noxious attitudes from the Pussycat Dolls themselves. See, your song can be loud and irritating, but for some strange reason, that won't always guarantee that I'll hate it. But when your tone of singing is sarcastic, your content is about how great your life is, and you're literally laughing at me, that's when your odds of pissing me off exponentially increase. Oh, and bad use of auto-tune. That also adds to making this the audio version of the highway accident from Final Destination 2. But this isn't any ordinary bragging, is it? It's framing it like it's a dream come true that they've had since they were little girls. The desire to be famous. And also the desire to be well-endowed, I guess. It's not stupid to want breasts, I guess, but you'd think that those would be a guarantee for them whether they get famous or not. Wait, that line is actually groupies? Jeez, my hearing must be getting bad. Well, I have been listening to this song, so that shouldn't be much of a surprise. And it's not just the chorus that makes me want to hit myself in the side of the head repeatedly. That feeling also bleeds into the verses. I especially hate those sugary vocal effects they use when they break into their whatever the female version of a falsetto is. Apparently they don't have one. That's BS. Anyway, those vocal effects are skin-crawling to me, and capping it off with those ha-ha-ha-has are the icing on the cake. There's an art to flexing, and that art involves charisma and feeling inclusive, like with Bruno Mars's 24 Karat Magic era. It doesn't work when the audience feels like they're being talked down to like this. And you know what? That's also condescending. As if to say, oh, you're not famous? Well, just wish to be famous. Or make a bunch of mediocre pop songs, maybe. It worked for them, so clearly it can work for you. At least until you fizzle out after 2009 and are never heard from again, and are also rightly derided for being terrible. 2008. Not a good year for girl groups. At least it seems that way. Number 2. In my 2007 best list, I gave a pass to I'm a Flirt by R. Kelly, a song that I probably shouldn't have given a pass to because A, R. Kelly is a terrible human being who was even recently accused by many women of running a goddamn sex cult, and B, because it's a Steal Your Girl song. But my appreciation for this song got me thinking a bit about my principles when it comes to music that dips into this territory. What about this song makes me give it a pass? It's the beat, mostly, I think. Because when you take a step back, what R. Kelly and the others are saying is pretty despicable. Basically putting the blame on you if your girl leaves with R. Kelly because you made the grave mistake of taking her out on a date. But a good beat and charisma, even if it's most definitely fake, can make me ignore that. But what if there was a song that brought all the ugliness of a situation like this to the forefront in its production and presentation? Well, then you'd get the worst Steal Your Girl song I think I've ever heard in my life. If this is the American dream, I'm headed straight to Canada. This is something I don't understand. So many layers of ugly attitudes and a beyond atrocious beat to match. And yet this was a hit. And it's a song where this man says to your face that he is
fucking your girlfriend and there's nothing you can do about it.
Only instead of being funny like with Gerald's line, here it's just kinda sad. For one, I don't see how it would be possible for someone to have enough game to steal my girl when they're this nasal and also think that doing this is cool. And yes, I say this despite the fact that I don't even have a girl, and that my voice is also pretty nasal. Okay, to be fair, I guess we have about equal amounts of game. Actually, scratch that, I definitely have more game than you. Seriously, who wears a wife beater to a club? Or is the girl wearing that? Who knows? Who cares? But this doesn't start getting especially ugly until the post-chorus and second verse. You know, I'd probably be laughing at this if it wasn't at my expense. Or at the expense of some third person, I guess. I don't know, the writing here is kind of inconsistent with who he's talking to. And dear God, the second verse is stuffed so full with toxic masculinity that it's kind of impressive.
Girl chose me, don't be mad.
Yeah, it chose you after you got her drunk and intentionally kept her away from me.
Kelly told y'all don't bring them in the club.
I knew there was a reason I brought up that R. Kelly song earlier. By the way, still a much better song than this.
And I pray that y'all ain't serious, 'cause seriously, she's on my dick.
If you really cared about the level of our relationship, you wouldn't be trying to wreck it, you piece of human garbage. And yeah, admittedly I don't know a lot about what the Dream's like in his personal life, but with the amount of ego this guy seems to be displaying on this song, and the fact that he's kind of been an uncharismatic doofus on other hits, it's a claim I feel justified in making, because you have to think pretty highly of yourself to insist in the bridge that you don't usually like to do this, but feel justified in doing it this time because it's what your heart told you to do.
My heart got me up and you're willing to separate you.
The real kick in the balls is the fucking outro!
Part of me feels so bad, but ooh, not that bad.
I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. Oh yeah, and that beat is terrible. Again, you have an artist with a pretty high voice and give him no bass to work with, so of course it's gonna sound unbalanced and creepy. It's all a cheap preset piano tone and some sandy R&B percussion added in for some desperate attempt to make this vaguely clubbish, but it's not. It really isn't. You can't get turned to this, you can't have a good time to this, you can't anything to this. And even if you somehow could, remember, you're being told in this song that your girlfriend hates you and you should just be okay with the hyphen dream over here taking her from you. Chris Brown singing about this crap over DJ Mustard or Knick-Knack Beats is better than this, and that's not something I say lightly. And we're not done yet, because the remix of this song starts with a verse from Jeezy.
It goes Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama,
Actually, never mind, we are done here. Just screw this song. Before we get to the dishonorable mentions, I would like to remind everyone to check out my SoundCloud in the description below. I go by Little Porsche, and I rap about the deep, important issues of our time and bring some new insight that you've never heard before. Have I mentioned before that I hate Britney Spears? Like, a lot. Because I do. Piece of Me is also pretty bad, but it's not a dishonorable mention here because who cares?
I'm sorry I'm bad. I'm sorry I'm bad.
This is basically better than me if instead of insufferable, it was hilarious as hell. You can't tell me with a straight face that you heard this song and started to feel sorry for the guy who's saying crazy bitch. It's not possible.
I'm laying in it and I'm focused. So hypnotized, the way your body rolling.
One of the stupidest romantics known to man teams up with one of the stupidest men in music to make a strip club anthem. Which one is which? I'll let you figure that out. At first glance, this song isn't really that bad, but this is one of the stupidest choruses I've ever heard. I don't know what girl is going to pick going to a violent shithole over a tropical vacation, dude. Your game is weak. If I put this on the list, it'd have 3 songs that revolve around stealing someone else's girl. And I figured I needed to practice a little self-control here. This was the 11th biggest song of 2008 in the United States. I don't remember it either, and frankly I'm glad I don't. Don't know what to say about this other than the music box melody is absolutely maddening. Seriously, the longer this thing goes on, the more the song starts to feel unhinged. It is the uncanny valley of Alicia Keys' songs. This would have been on the list itself if Neo didn't absolutely save this. Seriously, even when working opposite a complete jackass with bargain bin production, this guy is just so smooth and charismatic.
I made a promise to do you right and I'm gonna.
I really don't give this guy enough credit for how talented he is.
Sexual eruption, so I can get
Snoop Dogg tries to be an auto-tune crooner. Just... no. Also, referring to your orgasm as a sexual eruption is disgusting. I don't care who you are. The first line of the chorus was at one point so ingrained into internet meme culture that most of the people who said it, myself included, probably didn't know it came from this song. So aside from Low, I would probably call this Flo Rida's most significant contribution to pop culture. A dead meme from a song no one even remembered at that meme's peak. Truly, this man was a visionary.
But it's over now.
And now, number 1. As negative as I can come off doing retro worst lists, I still do genuinely enjoy looking back at what was popular when I didn't know what Billboard was. The reason I've made this a semi-regular thing is because I find it enjoyable picking apart long-forgotten songs or saying things about old songs I've wanted to say for years. Even if I feel more negative about a year than positive, it's still enjoyable to dissect why songs work or don't work. And while 2008 was not a bad year for music by any means to me, it'll always be an unfortunate time not just because it was sandwiched between the excellent 2007 and the subpar 2009, but because it was the year this song came into being. A song I've always had an intense hatred for, and can say is absolutely no fun to think about or talk about. And it took me until this year and listen to figure out just how draining it is. I'm not going to enjoy this.
Well, you done me and you bet I felt it. I tried to beat you.
Sometimes music hobbyists like myself have special reasons for why a certain song deserves the #1 spot. It has the least good in it, it's the most offensive, it would be a disservice to the song to place it anywhere else, etc. In this case, this song is at the top because I can't think of anything more fitting. Why is that? Because I genuinely believe this is one of the most useless pieces of music ever created. So much to the point where I can't imagine who this song is for and why anyone would ever, at any point, choose to listen to it.
Before the cool done run out, I'll be giving it my bestest.
Yes, this is a boring white guy with acoustic guitar song. Yes, it was overplayed as hell back in 2008 and 2009, and you could probably find an adult alternative station somewhere that still has this on regular rotation to this day. Yes, its writing is horribly cliched and kind of insufferable, but I don't think all of this is enough to explain why I consider this the worst song of 2008. But looking at it now, I think what gets to me the most about this song is how obnoxious it is. Listen to those stupid ukuleles, the obvious co-opting of reggae influences trying to pass itself off as catchiness, the fake swing Jason Mraz uses, and those awful inflections.
But I won't hesitate.
The quickest way to get in my bad graces is by being as obnoxious as possible with your delivery. I could probably make a top 10 list of the worst vocal inflections Mraz has on this song alone.
Open up your plans and damn, you're free.
That's definitely up there.
And it's our God-forsaken right to be loved. Love, love, love.
That's there too. They're repeating words, Mraz. They don't need to be sung like that. Oh, and this part would most definitely top the list. And believe it or not, but this part is actually made worse by having actual lyrics.
And I will nibble your ear.
It shows just how much he half-assed this part of the song. Oh, who am I kidding? He half-assed the entire song. You could have had this entire section be actual lyrics, but you decided half of it needed to be scattered because you needed to fill space and try to make your song just the slightest bit interesting. And you failed. Even with all that, I still feel like there's something missing here. Something that puts it below the Pussycat Dolls at their worst, or one of the worst Steal Your Girl songs I've ever heard. And ultimately, I think that missing something is smug detachment. This is a man putting himself out there as someone with no real problems. The kind of person who thinks all you need to get through your problems is to put on a smile.
Open up your mind and see like me.
That's why he's singing the way he is here. He wants to rub it in your face just how happy he is, and it's clear he doesn't want you to forget it anytime soon. It feels like naked, childish pandering that boils down several musical tropes of their essence and makes them sound like garbage to sell to every radio station possible to play non-stop. And it worked. This song was huge in 2008 and even bigger in 2009. Because of that, we're not gonna forget this anytime soon, much to my dismay. And considering he used to be a halfway decent artist with songs like The Remedy that played on the stations I grew up with, this feels like a sellout move harder than what Maroon 5 did at the turn of the decade. At least with them, they can still make something halfway interesting every now and again. This, on the other hand, is boring and effortless in the worst way possible, and for that reason, I consider this the worst hit song of 2008. I'm Cicabeot1, I'm probably angrier than I should be right now, and take care.
I'm yours.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Special thanks to Hayden for his cameo. Please check out his channel because it's very entertaining and he's quite hilarious. You'll love it. Best of 2008 will be coming next, so like, comment, and subscribe to prepare for that. And bye!